Welcome to this session, and I will talk about the role and the skills of an enterprise architect. And probably in a digital transformation program, because we must collect buzzwords.
Keep going.
When I was 6-7 years old, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to build houses. I played with Lego, Meccano, all that physical stuff. And today I'm an architect, but a different kind of architect. Last evening, when we were out at the restaurant, I talked to some neighbor at the table beside us. And I said I was going to an architect conference. Yes, there are lots of lovely buildings here in London. That's the typical approach when you talk to people about architecture. So we have the challenge to explain what is enterprise architecture and what we do it. And then, what are the skills we need to do our work? So if you go to another profession, if you are a nurse, if you are a lawyer, if you are a teacher, you have certifications, everybody knows what it is. But with enterprise architecture, it's very fuzzy. More or less everybody could say that they are an enterprise architect. So this is the challenge. So welcome to my session about the role and skills of an enterprise architect. In order to explain to people not in the IT, I used to say that it's a director. Everybody loves movies. So this is the theme for today. So director is responsible for the creative part, how the outline is, what is seen on the screen. And it's the same with an enterprise architect. A producer, they are more like a project manager. So they take care of all the administrative things. The look and feel in the film, how the actors work, that's the director's job. So this is a little bit better explanation to the people outside the IT realm. And when we talk about people outside IT, we also talk about the business people in the organization we work with. They're not IT people. So, what does an enterprise architect do? Besides shouting. So, when we have a solution, if you're a designer, you have to assure that the whole thing is working together. This is very useful design. We can brief a little bit. I question if that is a useful design. But things should work together. And it's the same with enterprise architecture. First of all, you have to ensure that we do what the business needs on the requirements part, so that each part is done according to specifications, what is needed to fulfill a useful goal. We also need to assure that the different parts fit together. You can make bolts and nuts that are very good at specification, but they won't fit together. And it's the same with large IT programs. You do things that work excellent, piece by piece, but not together. So this is also the role of an enterprise architect, to ensure that the different pieces in a large program, in a large digital transformation program, fits together. But also, not forget that we have the legacy part. We have a new program, we want to change a lot of things, but the new things must work together with the old things. And that is also the responsibility of the enterprise architect in a large transformation program. So this is a little bit about what we are doing on a very high level, because that's where we're working on a very high level. I will tell you a secret. A lot of Hollywood movies don't meet their budget goals. They overrun, and they didn't get the audience that they think of. It's the same with large digital transformation programs. They also overrun and don't follow the time plan. They don't deliver the value. So the other part of enterprise architecture and the role of an enterprise architect is to mitigate those risks, to identify them, and to inform the program manager who is responsible that this will not work, and to inform the stakeholders to this large endeavor that we have huge risk. Are you aware of them? Because they are probably not. You can look in the papers and see some relevant examples. No names, no companies. So, as an enterprise architecture, you need to handle risks, but you also need to be aware that you have to take risk to do large things. You can't just stand still either. As an enterprise architect, the expectations on you are very huge, especially if it's a £10 million, €10 million transformation program larger. You have a large responsibility. But without the proper skills, you are very, very fragile. And you need to know how you do your work. You need the architecture skills. So there are a lot of examples that I've seen during the year that people say that they are architects, but they can't explain the method they are using. They can't explain how they're doing it. And I see a lot of challenges with this approach. First of all, if you set a group of 5 enterprise architects that work differently in a group, do you think there will be a result? No. They will just argue which method is the best. And then I have to come in and say, this is the way to go. Because we need to have one method, one way to do it in the group. You recognize it? Yes. You also have the challenge when you're doing the architecture work, that if you have new architects, they have to learn. And if you don't have any methods, everybody doing ad hoc work, just inventing, then it's very hard for a newcomer to learn. To be a practitioner architects in a situation like that, that's not what I would wish them to be part of. So it's about the skills for an enterprise architect. You need proper architecture skills. Otherwise, you are very naked out there. As an enterprise architect, you are a leader. You're not a manager, you are a leader. And as a leader, you must earn trust. You must be trusted. And if you have a director on set, he must have trust from his crew and cast. And without knowing how to handle the camera, how to do the lighting, how to handle sound, how to perform, we are the best. You don't have the trust from your crew and cast. The same with an enterprise architecture. If you don't have the trust from the team, you will not succeed. You need to be able to know what the different people are doing in the transformation program in your team. Know the basic skills of everybody. Otherwise, you will not get that trust. So this is very important. And I think it's a very good example that all of us that are speaking and listening today, we have different experiences. And that is a very huge advantage when you're doing enterprise architecture. When we're talking about these large digital transformation program, sadly, we have to do some IT. It's better if we don't, but we have to do it. And if you are an enterprise architect, this is my opinion, you need to master IT. If you are talking to a software developer, especially when they are agile persons, if you can't do software development, then you have hard to understand what they're talking about. It's very hard for you to explain your thoughts, and it's also very hard to earn that trust. So this is some code I wrote 20 years ago for a web application. I have done it. So I have the background of programming, but I haven't done programming for this century. But because of this background, I can talk to different people in the agile groups that I'm working with now. So this is a very, very hard requirement as I see it. You need to know the skills in IT in order to set the principles, to set the guidelines, and do a proper design for a solution. Know what is possible and know what can't be done. But IT is not everything. You have to be able to talk about finance and money and things like that. It's very easy to do a technical solution where it's the best technical solution, but it's rather expensive. We all want the best technical gear. That's all right. But we can't afford it. So we have to think of the money. And the designer has to know what are the limitations. What can we budget? And a software developer, he doesn't care. What will it cost? Doesn't care. That's a normal thing. So as an enterprise architect, you have to be able to see what are the costs, both for the development, but also the other parts, to talk to the program manager who is responsible for the work. So, and you also have to think about what's the total cost of ownership, so you don't make a quick and dirty solution that will cost a fortune to maintain. That's another thing also. So as an enterprise architect, you need to be aware of the finances in a program. And we also have the benefits. I have seen solution designs where I asked what are the benefits for business, and they commit silent. And I say, scrap it. Because this is what the CFO will ask. How much will I earn? It's very simple. It's all down to the money. At least when you work in a private enterprise. We got architecture skills. We got IT skills. We know how to develop software. We know about the financials. But we also need to know about the business. Because the why question in every digital transformation program is about the business. Why are we doing this? So we must understand how the business works. We must understand their vocabulary. If you go to a telco, they have their way of talking. If you go to a bank, an insurance company, they have their language. You must be able to understand it. Otherwise, you can't design a good solution. You can't find if the solution we are doing will fulfill the business requirements, because we can't talk with them. We must understand the business language. And this is very important. So it's a lot of different things you have to have skills in as an enterprise architect. And the business part, knowing the business you're in, I think that's the most important part. we're a little bit dressed up now. Let's make it. We got the architecture skills, we got the IT skills, we got the financial. Everything is in our blood. We need it. We can do it. And we also know the business side. But this is not enough. We are not ready for the real world. The real world is flesh and blood. It's not IT. It's not the processes. It's about people and organizations. We have to know about the company culture. And here comes the challenges for us who has a technical background as I do. This is not easy. So if we have an organization to say that we are running full speed ahead, everybody should drive in one direction, we cannot change how we're driving, we cannot go slower, then we have a challenge. If we look at digital transformation, why do we need to do it? Because it's a disruption in the market. If we have done something for many years and think that this way of working, this way of approaching a problem, as we always have done, will work in a very new world and can't change, can't do terms, can't question, then we have a huge problem as an enterprise architect. So we have to be aware of the company culture in the different organizations we work with. So this is very important. You also have some companies where you have an ostrich behavior. You tell them that this will not work. This is something that is very high risk, and they just don't pretend it exists. It's like that. And if you're an enterprise architect, then you have a very huge challenge to do a good work. Because you were responsible to fix the business requirements that is developed. You should fix that every part works together and it works with all things. And you have to do it within the limited budget. So if it's a mission impossible and they just say, drive ahead, then you have a very huge challenge. So how can you solve that challenge? That's the biggest question. And that's what I'm struggling with every day, more or less. So it's about communication. And communication is not only what I'm doing now, I'm communicating with you. Communication is a lot about listening. To listen to what the business says. To listen what the stakeholder says. To listen to what the developer says. The people that maintain the software. Because if you listen to them, you understand what are their desires, what are their goals, and how could you tailor your message to the group. Normally, I will do this type of talk in a one-to-one situation. And then it's very easy to convince one of you each. It's much harder when I'm talking here to an audience of a lot of people. So communication to the stakeholders and to all involved parties is a must if you want to work as a successful enterprise architect in the transformation program. I'm also on the side that you should tell as much as possible. You shouldn't cover up things. Because in the end, that will hit you in the back. Sooner or later. So communication is very crucial to succeed. I used to say that design is about compromises. You want to design something that fulfills the requirements, and they can differ. And you have constraints, both technical constraints But you can also have budget constraints. So handling those constraints within the design, that's important for an enterprise architect. And we're talking a lot about agile projects, change programs, and there we have what is delivered in each sprint. So you have to see, what can I deliver now? What can I deliver later? So priorities from different parts of the organization. To find compromises for those different requirements from different people. And the challenge as an enterprise architect is that we often have different stakeholders that have their own line of business, like these three gentlemen here, and they have different set of priorities, and they have profit and loss responsibility. You have to find a solution that is acceptable for all three of them. Otherwise, you can't do it. So it's finding compromises, and one way to do it is to look at different types of scenarios, list the pros and cons. I have done that for when we had different requirements for business and IT. We found a solution a year ago that was acceptable for both business and IT, and that was the first time in that company. So it's possible to do, but you have to have the time to sit down with the stakeholders and discuss it, and the patience, because they don't understand what you are saying the first time, probably not the second time, but the third time. So we have to sit down, and if we have Tom here, he will just say no all the time. And the power of no is also very important. As an enterprise architect, you are a very, very skilled person. You have a long experience. You're paid well, probably, hopefully. And if you see that this is not going to work, you should be able to say no. You know the difference between a mission that is hard to do but is accountable, and you can't do it, but the managers don't accept that fact. So you have to be able to say no as an enterprise architect. This will not fly. Finally, as an enterprise architect, you're selling grids. You have to be a good storyteller to tell a story that people will remember, people will talk to about, and people will say, go and look at that movie, listen to him because it was a good lecture. Thank you, and this was my story about an enterprise architect, his role and his skills.